And I think we're live, actually.
You think we're live or you know we're
I
live?
know we're live.
All right. Well, since we are now officially live, as confirmed by my good friend and colleague here, Adnan, who I'd like to formally introduce all of you to, who, if you've been following our previous streams, you should know him quite well by this point. He is one of our content evangelists and is also heavily involved in working with our tutorials and whatnot. And that's why today I am proud to present Adnan's Blender, Eevee, and Megascans extended breakdown. So go on ahead and take the microphone, my friend.
Thank you for the introduction. Hey everyone, Adnan here, like Jonathan said. So, some of you probably already saw the Blender video that we recently released about Blender and Eevee. I'm actually gonna post it in the... Oh, it's already in the description, so you can just check the description and see that video. So, someone asked in the comment, they said that Nvidia just invested in Blender as well. Nvidia just invested in Blender as well, and yeah, they feel like every company out there should also do the same. Oh, they're hearing a lot of echo. That's strange. Jonathan, are you hearing a lot of echo as well?
Not on my end, unfortunately.
Okay. Echo only on Jonathan's voice.
Oh, that would figure, wouldn't it?
Okay, I think they said it's okay now. Okay, yes. Sorry everyone, that was a small issue. But yes, so Blender, yeah. Lots of companies are currently investing in Blender, and you can go to blender.com, actually no, blender.org, because it's an organization. And yeah, you'll just, you can download the tool for free, and also they have a lot of development fund reports where whenever someone, I think they're saying that it's back or something, but yeah, whenever someone, like Epic or the other guys, Nvidia or whoever sends them money, they just focus on one specific feature. For instance, Epic invested in Blender in order to make sure that Blender has pipeline upgrades to make it more flexible for big studios. So it's super interesting, and I mean, beyond that, you gotta admit though, I'm a hardcore Maya user, by the way, and to me the only software lately that really showed enough progress was Blender. Like, there are so many updates, and the difference between 2.78 and 2.8 and I think now 2.81 is just crazy. So it's yeah, it's quite promising, and that's why we also want to jump on the bandwagon at Quixel and kind of show some love to the Blender community by producing tutorials, sharing Blender artists artwork on social media, and maybe more. Someone asked, will Quixel invest in Blender? I have no idea, honestly. But yeah, before we go into the topic of this video though, I'd like to mention that we have a Quixel art community group, so I'll just post that in the chat right away. It says that there was an error. I'll just refresh my page in a second. Yeah, please do check this group. There's a lot of great work that is shared almost every day, as you can see here, by amazing artists. And a lot of people use it almost like a learning center where they share basic stuff. Maybe they're not great enough, so they just share simple work. We give them feedback, and by we I mean all the great artists at Quixel, like Victor Eman, Josh Powers, Jack McKelvey, James Lucas, and pretty much every other artist. You also have the CEO, who's there almost every day checking and so on. So yeah, it's really a great place. We also have, if you want to see amazing art done with pretty much every software, please do check the Instagram as well. And finally, I recommend everyone, and I mean really everyone, to give Blender a try. I know that a lot of people, Oh, thank you, Jin, for sharing the Discord server as well. Yes, Discord is the best place, by the way. So yeah, I know that a lot of people use Max and Maya and other softwares for so long, and you know, Blender's hype might sometimes almost seem like noise because it's everywhere, but the software really has an incredible potential. So yeah, if you're a 3D artist wanting to build environment, you should give it a try. It's definitely worth it. How long have you been using Blender? Not much, actually. To be honest, I haven't had the time to dive deep into the software. I mostly transferred like my basic navigation settings from Maya to Blender, and I know how to, you know, move around the scene, place object, place lights, work with Eevee to make a scene look good, but I don't know how to unwrap, for instance. I think there are great plugins for Blender to unwrap, so I'm probably gonna use those. Yes, so today's topic is gonna be about Blender's render Eevee. Basically, we're just gonna be talking about, you know, what are the settings of Eevee, what's Eevee all about, and so on. If you're a Blender user, this is probably not gonna be like a groundbreaking live stream for you if you're used to it. However, I'm gonna be sharing a bunch of tips and tricks here and there that might be interesting to all of you. So for those of you who don't know, with Blender 2.8 there's like two renders. One of them is called Eevee, which is the one that you see here, and this is actually the first time for a real-time renderer to be available in, you know, just a typical modeling software. Maya has viewport 2.0, but it isn't that great compared to this. Max, I think they're working on their shaders right now, and Modo has, actually yes, Modo has a really nice viewport, but it's not the same as, like, Eevee is really good. And the best thing about it is that you can work on a scene in real time. Let's say you're an architecture and visualization artist. You can create a scene, you know, using all the real-time tools. You make an animation and all that stuff. And if your client wants super sharp, high-quality renders, then you can just convert your scene from Eevee to cycles, and then send, you know, export your renders in, I don't know, 4K or whatever, with all the crispiness of offline rendering. And to do that, you can actually go here, you know, in the context or render settings, and then you have the render engine over here. I hope my computer doesn't crash if I change it here, but let's see. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to tweak your lighting just a little bit here and there, but overall it's really good. I'm not gonna switch to GPU because I know my computer is gonna crash.
So and that you not render right now. You're sounding like a robot.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. So yeah, it's pretty great whether you want to try both modes. Now, Eevee itself, you know, it's not super obvious sometimes how it works. Like, one question that I had when I first tried it was, okay, this is great and all, but how do I actually create, you know, a nice scene with global illumination in it? Let me just double check the comments because I'm seeing some really interesting stuff here. Have a live link officially. So there's a question here about the live link. Yes, have a live link officially, but Substance doesn't. I guess what you mean is, do we have like a Megascans live link or something for I don't know, maybe Painter?
No, I think what they're actually asking is, what were the legalities behind it, because it seems as though they were able to do something that other companies were not.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I get, like, because he also mentioned GPL, which Blender is in. Basically, you can't release a plugin, for instance, in Blender without making it open source. The live link that we released is completely open source, by the way. You can open it, tweak it, do whatever you want with it. If you want to export your textures to another texturing softwares, Megascans textures are really simple to set up. I guess, yes, that would be my answer. And yeah, so back to Eevee. first off, I was talking about global illumination, and for those of you who don't know what global illumination is, it's just this concept of indirect lighting where if you have a light that is pointing in this direction, for instance, and it hits a surface, it shouldn't only impact that specific surface. All the light photons or particles should start bouncing off all over the scene. Like that's actually how light works. So yeah, it's a pretty nifty feature, but Blender doesn't have real-time global illumination like real-time ray tracing, for instance. Yes, our plugin is open source, and Zomac Blah, yes, you can use Python to code in Blender, and they have one of the best Python APIs out there as well. So first off, in order to have global illumination in Blender, you need to go to your render tab over here, and then you have this option called Indirect Lighting, where you can bake your indirect lighting, a cube map, or you can delete the cache, which basically means delete your GI pass in the scene. So if I hit delete here, I'm just gonna do that, and then I'll delete this guy. This is what my scene would look like by default. I can deactivate all the other parameters. This is a basic Blender scene without any post-processing going on. The statues, I'm gonna talk about them a little bit later. And yeah, so first off, there are just some basic effects that you can activate to make your scene look good. First one of them is ambient occlusion. That just makes everything looks really good. I usually set it to 2, I mean especially for this scene, but I tried so many different assets from the Megascans library, and most of the time a value between 1.5 to 2 yields the best results. So is there a cool workflow for Megascans decals inside Blender? Yes, I'm coming to that later in the live stream. Okay, so back to the post-processing chain here. Now I have my ambient occlusion, you know, the settings are all good. And the next one that I like to activate is bloom. Now bloom is really important here because I have a light here that is an emissive light, and I'm gonna show you how to actually make that later on, but it really helps, you know, kind of make it glow all over here. How are the light probe tools compared to Unreal? I mean, in Unreal Engine, like Unreal Engine is made to support, you know, static and dynamic lighting setups, and like there are so many settings just to control your reflections, your lighting passes, your light maps as well, that I never compared them, but I think Unreal has much better light, not just light probes actually, but reflection captures as well, and baked lighting's parameters in general. Okay, let's see if there's another question here. Yeah, so next thing that I activated was bloom, and then you have screen space reflections. Screen space reflections, like, don't ever make a scene without enabling screen space reflections. It's the best thing ever. It basically computes, you know, real-time reflections within your scene instead of just making everything super shiny, which isn't, you know, like that's so next gen, sorry, old gen in the PS3 era. But yeah, it's pretty neat. You have a few settings here. I generally don't tweak the parameters because it looks good by default, to be honest, so that's all good. And finally, actually before we go to indirect lighting, you have shadows, and shadows have multiple methods here, but what's really interesting is the ability to toggle soft shadows and also kind of have high bit depth shadows as well, which can be useful depending on the resolution of your final renders, for instance, and just the quality of the shadows themselves in general. So I've set the cache size and the cascade size here to 1024. Actually, I think by default it's at 512 or something. So yeah, I just doubled that. And soft shadows, you can barely see the impact, but if you look closely here, let me just deselect my objects. Yeah, you know, it's just good enough to help you kind of improve the quality of your renders. And so now I'm just gonna go over here, and I have this indirect lighting option. This is where your GI happens. Now if I hit bake indirect lighting, you'll notice that nothing actually happens, and that's because in order to bake it, you need to have a irradiance volume, which is basically a pretty big volume with a bunch of points, almost like a 3D grid that allows you to compute GI within certain distances. To add that, you can just go to add here, and then you go to light probe, and then you have irradiance volume. This is something that I really like about Blender, by the way. If you start it for the first time, you're gonna be here. Like, it's quite confusing. You have your typical Blender cube. I usually go to the shading panel, and then I just work from here. If you want to change your view, focus, and so on, you can do that here. And you can also learn the shortcuts. You can see how you select an object, you invert, and so on. You can also add your objects, and like literally everything is so obvious. And this menu right here allows you to select, move, rotate, and all those other options. Again, super intuitive tool. So I just imported. I'll go back to add again, and then light probe and irradiance volume. Now as I said before, this volume is basically an area within which your indirect lighting will be baked. So you need to scale it to cover the whole scene. I'm just gonna do that like so. And if you go to your settings right here, you have the resolution parameters. This basically controls what's the resolution of your 3D grid, or how many points you have in each axis. So for the tutorial, I just set the value to 10 for all other axes, and it was pretty good. I didn't need to tweak it further. Now that I have this one right here, I'll just go back to my render context again. Then I'll hit bake lighting, and now you can see the difference. So when you hit bake lighting, basically Eevee is gonna try to bake your lighting, you know, compute proper lighting connections between the different surfaces, compared to the resolution, the surfaces that glow, and all that stuff. And I think I always had like this weird glitch, but usually it either disappears early on or something, but I probably just need to upgrade my graphic card's driver. But yeah, as soon as it's done, it should look pretty good. You can move around your scene, by the way, while it's computing, but just don't move an object. That's not recommended in general. Okay, let me just double check the comment here. Yeah, this is actually a really good comment. From Rothwick Rao. Basically, Blender has so many updates all the time that you really need to make sure that you're using the latest versions. For instance, this bug right here that I have, maybe it's already fixed in 2.81. I think it was released a few days ago. So yeah, just make sure to always update your Blender, because it's an experimental software at this stage, and there are so many things that still need work on that aspect. So yeah, now that I baked my irradiance lighting, you can go back, by the way, and delete it if you don't want to, and bake it again. It's a fairly fast process. Actually, let me just save my scene right here, and I'll just double check. The EL update, actually I had this sometimes even for like a whole day when I'm leaving my computer. That's how I knew it was kind of buggy. Sometimes it just lasts hours, sometimes it's 2 minutes, and then it doesn't do this anymore. But yes, so The general settings here in Eevee's render panel really are fairly simple. You don't need to, and you shouldn't tweak too many things in general. Like, it's just really simple. And these are the settings that I played with. You also have the sampling here, where I tweak the render samples and the viewport samples as well. These are like they say, the number of samples per pixel for rendering. The higher the value, the better your rendering quality. Then you have viewport denoising, which I didn't use, to be honest, because yeah, this is just like an experimental whip. I'm using 2.8. I haven't tried 2.81 just yet, but I heard that there's a lot of great improvements on Eevee actually. So yeah, that's great. Alright, so now I'm just gonna jump back to Bridge, and then I'll export the surfaces of these statues. So I already have these statues here, so what I'll do is I'll probably just export my statues. Let me just type in here statue 3D, and I'll start by sending this guy. By the way, for those of you who don't know, we have a Blender integration. A lot of people ask this question. There is one. You just need to click on any asset you want in the downloaded tab of Bridge. Then you have the export settings, and from here you can select which software you want. So you have Unreal, 3ds Max, Maya, Unity, Blender, Houdini, Cinema 4D, Claris, Marmoset, Mixer, and custom software. Basically, most tools in the industry are supported here, so you should be fine. But I set it to Blender. I installed the plugin. There's actually an update, and then I just hit export, and I'll give it a second. There you go. Okay, I should have my statue. Oh no, it imported it at the wrong, really wrong scale. But I'll just nuke that one. This is probably due to my scene, by the way. I made it in Maya and I just dragged and dropped it into my Blender scene. So to apply my material, what I usually do is I select my object. I think you can find all the materials right here. This is Blender's node editor, by the way. Or you can go by default, Blender looks like this. If you click on this icon over here, your display mode, you can go to your Blender file, which is like the scene in Blender, and then you have all the different objects in your scene, from the light probes to the materials objects. Everything is here. So I'm just gonna click on my materials here, and now I have all my different statues material. You can just drag and drop it on one of the meshes. Not this one, maybe this one. Ta-da! There you go. Yeah. So this is looking good. Something that I recommend is to bump up the normal intensity to maybe 1.5 if you feel like doing that. I'm just gonna lower it down a little bit. And let's see the comments here. I really like how seamless the integration is for me. One click and it's in Blender. If only every other app worked in unison like that. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's really the vision of Bridge, is that it's a tool that allows you to do this kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, we have so much stuff to cover still within Bridge. It's a really big, ambitious tool. I mean, on the surface, you know, you might say, oh great, it just downloads my Megascans asset. I don't want to download Manager, I already have so many of them. But Bridge is so much more than that, so I really recommend you to try that out. So yeah, the plugin is shipping with Bridge. Basically, you need to download Quixel Bridge. You can just go to quixel.com/bridge. Then you download Bridge. Click on this link, you're gonna download Bridge. And once you install Bridge, I think if you're not a subscriber, you have like a trial account where you can download a few assets and get to see how the whole thing works. But generally, you know, you download Bridge, you're gonna have 0 in this downloaded tab. So just select an asset, maybe set the download. I'm gonna cover this later on, by the way, like the download settings for Blender in general. Then you hit download. Once your download is done, it's gonna appear in the downloaded tab here, and from there you can just click on an asset you want to export, go to the export setting over here. So just to kind of go back through this quickly, if I click on an asset that I haven't downloaded, like this one, you'll notice that I only have 2 tabs. First one is asset info and then download settings. However, any asset that I download is gonna have 3 different tabs, and to export you obviously need to go to export settings. Here you can set the resolution, format, mesh format, LOD, and finally you just select your Blender integration. By default you're gonna see like a download button over here, so just click on that and then it should be fairly straightforward from there. However, do note that actually in the description of this live stream you can find a video that goes through the whole process. So your online support is great. You know what, Marvin, I know that I work here, but I totally agree. Quixel support team is amazing. Like, you have no idea how hard these guys work day and night to make sure that everyone you know, has the help that not they need but they deserve. And I can't communicate numbers because NDAs, but you know, like, you can get the support basically gives you an average number of satisfaction, and I think that one is like almost 100%, 90 something. So it's, the people are doing like a fantastic job. And yeah, Jonathan actually is one of our oldest, I think the first one support guy at Quixel actually, and yeah, he's been doing God's work for more than 5 years, and yep, it's really really good. All right, so now I'm just gonna show you, you know, I exported an asset, I applied my material. Next I just, oops, I'll just undo that. I just need to do that to the other 2 statues. So I'll select the second one, drag and drop it on this guy, and I have 1 statue remaining. So let's go back to bridge. I'll just write in statue and then 3D. Which one is it? Okay, it's this one. So you don't need to click on an asset and then go to the, wait, no, what have I done? There you go. Yeah, you don't need to click on an asset and then go to the export tab here. You can just scroll over the asset itself and hit this button over here to export. So yeah, super useful. Alright, now I'm just gonna give it a sec, and there you go, it's imported. I'll select this guy over here, and I should find the material right here. There you go. The reason why, again, I already have them is because I made the scene in an external software, Maya, because I used this scene in many other tools, and yeah, I already had them there, so I just need to apply the materials. So this is just like a basic demo of how simple it is to import Megascans assets. But just to talk about it a little bit more, I'll select this wall in the background. Actually, let me delete the decals because I'm gonna cover them later. Okay, I just selected that surface. I'll go back to bridge, and then I can write concrete surface, and let's see what it gives us. So I have all these different surfaces. I am gonna export. You know what, let's send this one because it looks nice. Don't do it because it doesn't look like a wall, but hey, who cares? Okay, export it to Blender. Okay, with my wall selected, I'm just gonna select, let's give it a sec, concrete stone pavement, and let's see what it looks like. There you have it. So this is actually a really good segue into UV mapping in Blender. But yeah, as you can see, it's really really fast and responsive. Let me check the comments. Yep, I can confirm this like bug over here. I'm not used to having them. It's just my, I don't even know if you guys can hear my GPU, sorry, but it's screaming, begging me for release or something. So let me close this one over here, and then I'll go down here. Let's undo. No, there you go. I'll just select my concrete surface again. I'll deselect. You can deselect with Control Shift A to deselect anything that you have. Yes, Arnaud Imob, yes, you have to rebake. Since I changed the textures, I have to rebake, and the reason behind that is basically the radiance volume and the indirect lighting takes into account the color of the different objects in your scene. So before, this one was just white, now you know it has its own colors. So yeah, you need to go back here and then delete cache. This is without, and bake your caching again. Now you just wait a little bit and it should be done in some time in general. But yeah, I'll delete it, or actually let's just bake and leave it be. Let me check the comments again. Yes, importing assets and materials via bridge works perfectly well too with cycles. That's actually a really great thing with Blender, is that you know, if you're working in real time, like I said earlier, you can easily switch between offline and real time. So although we don't have, you know, like cycles materials, Eevee materials, Blender has a principled BSDF shader right here, which works universally for both. And yeah, it's just one click and you're done. So like I said earlier, I wanted to tweak my UVs, which you always want to do here and there. And one way of doing it, actually, let's apply my surface again, the concrete stone pavement. This is the shader setup that bridge makes, by the way. I'll just space things a little bit. There you go. I think you can actually make the lines rounded. I tried like the build a while ago, and there's like a setup to kind of change these lines here from straight lines to Bezier curves, but they look weird, so I don't like to use them in general. Alright, so what I want to do here is create a UV coordinate parameter for those of you who are familiar with tiling in general, to kind of change the repetition here. And to do that, you could right click and write mapping. You know, you're gonna add a mapping node, but the mapping node, you know, it needs a source. It's almost like you're creating a compass without giving it any initial instructions, like here's north, south, east, west. So to do that, you could create another node called texture coordinate, and this one you can feed your UVs to the vector input here of the mapping node. Now I'm just gonna start plugging the vector output over here to all my inputs. So this one, and then this one, and this one. Oops, there you go, got it. And finally, actually, can I do that? Let's move the node right here, and I'll just plug this one here as well. Let me double check the comments again. If you use cycles with the experimental, then you can get a couple of more nodes. Oh, nice. That's actually from Ajwat, who oh, for those of you who don't know, Ajwat, who just commented on the chat, is the guy behind this Blender Live link, and he's working on the Maya one, the Max one, the Cinema 4D one, the Unity one. Basically, the definition of a magician and a great technical artist is Ajwat. He's doing God's work, and yeah, if you appreciate our plugins, you should definitely send him a hi. Alright, so I'm just gonna switch my mapping mode here from point to texture, because we want to be able to manipulate a texture. So I'll just need to make sure that everything is working as intended here. And then if I go back to my scale and start tweaking my parameter, you'll notice that I'm manipulating the settings of my texture. So I could set it to maybe something like 0.75 and do the same thing all over. Actually wonder if there's a way to, or maybe 2. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it can be pretty useful, and it's fairly simple. You missed one texture image to map. I wonder which one. No, I think they're all good. Are you guys planning on doing more Blender content? Absolutely. To be honest with you, we're really not doing enough tutorials right now on Blender, and yes, I think it's one of the biggest tasks on our to-do list as marketing, is just to make sure that, you know, Blender users have enough content, not just here's how to do this and that, but also here's how to make great looking dioramas, or maybe a scene, who knows, and showing you guys all kind of tips and tricks. Yep. As Teddy said, you need an active subscription to use a bridge. I think you can use the $9 per month plan. And to be honest with you guys, again, I work at Quixel, but really, once you try out the export and completely forgetting about manually importing stuff, it's just gonna change the game for you. So you should give it a try and then see how it goes. Drag your mouse and then type the amount. I wonder how that would work. Oh, okay, that is really nice. Thank you so much, Ruth Rickrell. So I'll just set the value here to maybe 2.5. Yeah, that's actually really neat. So you can drag your mouse over all the parameters here. No, not like this. There you go. Just drag your mouse and then set the value. Yeah, that's a really great tip. Thank you so much. Perfect. So I'm just gonna delete these since I don't need them, just, you know, kind of to show you basically how do you do those settings. And for those of you who want to create that node setup even faster, you can actually go to edit and then preferences, and in preferences you have the add-on tab, and I'm just gonna type in Wrangler. So Blender has a node Wrangler plugin, which is like an utility plugin that gives you various tools to help you work faster within the node graph. I think you have a shortcut of Control T within the node graph, or was it Control Shift? No, come on, do this, Blender. Wait, did I activate it? Yeah, you have a shortcut like Control T or something to create those nodes, but you can also extract more features like Control and then right clicking to delete all your connections. So that's much faster than having to manually doing it by 1 and then 2, then, you know, till infinity. You're still not done with even one output. So that's pretty neat. I'm just gonna set my node back to the default one, not this one. Was it this one? There you go. Perfect. So now I'm gonna be talking about the opacity support, but actually before I do that, someone asked about 3D plants. So I'm just gonna show you how you can import that. I'll just write in 3D plant and I'll import my favorite 3D plant, which is, come on, where are you hiding? Actually, did I download? Okay, it's this one. This is the best plant ever. So I'm just gonna send it to Blender, hit export, and now we'll see how that goes. Okay, I have my plants in my scene. I'll just double check the comments quickly. Yeah, definitely. You should definitely check out the node Wrangler. I'm hoping to make a more extensive tutorial on how to use that one, because again, it's just insane. Yeah, as you can see, you have your 3D plants right here. Again, one click, no fuss, it's here ready for you to use. I noticed that the opacity actually isn't used, so this is, I guess, a good segue to show you how to enable opacity. Just select an object like this one that is supposed to have an opacity map, which I think is alpha map right here. Yeah, so clearly we have an opacity map right here, and to make it work you need to go to your material settings and then make sure that in the settings here, the blend mode, you just make sure that it, it's either in alpha hashed or alpha clipped. And now it's gonna look like this again, with opacity. So just to go through this quickly again, select any object that is by default opaque, and then go to blend mode right here, and then alpha hashed. I think alpha hashed basically applies some dithering, which is like some smooth noise on the edges, while clipped probably just clips the whole mask. Yep, it gives you really sharp edges. So yeah, depending on what you need, you might want to play with both settings. I'm gonna leave those there. Okay, so decals. Let's write in decals. I'll just do that here. Let me see the comments. Is there a Megascans trial version or anything like a demo? Looks like a really cool look dev experience. Oh, okay. I think Jin already answered. And yes, we do have a trial version that you can try. Mixer is free, by the way, so you can play with that software as much as you want. Let me check the comments again. By the way, don't you hear the cat? Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so I'm not sure what decal I'm gonna export here, so maybe I'll just send, you know what, I'll send something crazy. This one. I know that I'm supposed to have leakages, but I'm just gonna play with something like this. And as you can see, it didn't tell me export successful, and that's because it's converting my maps here. Basically, this happens when, for instance, maybe I downloaded a texture in 4K. In this case, I probably downloaded the asset in 4K, but my export settings are in 2K. So when you export, the live links just looks at that, and it can take a few seconds, but it's fairly fast in general. Right, so now it's imported, and I'll just select the wall over here. Nope, not this one. Okay, and I'll click over here, and I should find that one somewhere. Right here. Okay. As you can see, this is not what we imported. We did not sign for the surface, basically. So to make it work again, just make sure that in your material setting, the blend mode is not set to opaque, but alpha hashed or the other setting. And now it looks like this. You have like a proper decal and so on. But you know what? I'll just undo my parameters, and I'll duplicate this one instead. No, don't do that, Blender, please. Don't do that. Why do you do this to me? I keep forgetting the shortcut to move the object. There you go. Okay, now that I duplicated the object, I'm just gonna apply a decal on it, the one that we imported, so this one. And then I need to make sure that it's set to alpha hashed again. Let's give it a sec. Wonder if it did something. There you go. Okay, so the next step here is you can just rescale it very subtly to make sure that it kind of overlaps with the geometry above it. And this is actually, it's like a general rule. So for those of you who don't know, we did a tutorial last month in Maya. I'm just gonna jump into it in a sec, where we were talking about the fact that when you're having something like, let's say, a cylindrical object, and maybe you want to have the UVs, you want to have like a leakage pass, you can just duplicate the cylinder, scale it just slightly like this, for instance. Actually select these two values and then scale it. Or if it's these two, no, there you go. Yeah, again, just enough like that. And if you export these two objects, you can assign one material, like this one, for instance, could be the concrete surface, and this one could be the asphalt, gravel, whatever. And yeah, that's the logic here. Again, I just duplicated this mesh. You can see there's another pass over here, and then I scaled it down. So let's see here. I really have to compliment your commitment to public outreach and interactions. You guys are doing a phenomenal job making content for everybody. Thank you so much. That means the world. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, just this company is filled with fantastic people who are really giving their heart and soul to making sure that everyone is happy. And we're really into this philosophy that if you're happy, then I'm happy, my boss is happy, everyone's happy. So that's why we're really trying to step up our game with tutorials, marketing, more live links, and everything else. All right, so let's see here. Yes, Andre Salamondic said instead of duplicating the wall, use a texture mask for mixing. Yes, just like with Unreal, you can actually mix your different textures right here, and then you can manipulate them through masking and so on procedurally. However, I do like to have control generally in the geometry, because maybe you have intricate UVs and that might make it harder to deal with. So yeah, just depends on your use cases, but generally speaking, if you have something this simple, just choose the method that is faster for you. Okay, let's look at the comments. Oh, okay, actually no, it's not lagging. Could you reduce the viewport sampling? It's actually not lagging at all. It's just that maybe, I don't know, there might be some feedback. I'm not sure. But like Ajwad said, there's going to be some update to make sure that you guys don't have to set up these kind of alpha hashed parameters and so on. When would you make the decision to use geo versus texture driven decals? That is a very good question. So I think it really depends on your UV layout. If your object is really simple, like for this wall for instance, I could literally just use like basic box mapping to project my tileable what's the name of the texture again? I keep forgetting. Like I need to remember it now, like OCD, black gravel something something. Yeah, so again, depending on your needs, you can just use that one as a mask. Like Andre said, you create your node setup here by importing the texture, you import the opacity as well. And the other case where the geometry might prove to be super useful is when you want to have like rust leakages in a super specific area. Let's say I have this guy right here and I only want to have leakages like just in this area here. You could project it with textures, however it's just much faster to just duplicate the surface and then apply like a texture here that makes it looks good. And since you're not working on a game or something, you don't need to worry about is my scene optimized. That doesn't mean you should throw everything at your scene. I'm gonna talk about it actually in a few minutes, but yeah, it won't change things that much. Where can I find the Discord server link? Jin, can you drop it for him? I don't have that link on me right here, but yeah, Jin will probably give it to you, and I'll post it regardless if he doesn't in a minute or something. So yes, there you go, now you have it. Okay, so as you can see, the workflow is really simple. Now the next thing that I wanted to talk about is kind of the lighting, because there's a bunch of really interesting lighting tweaks that you can do. However, for this scene I just had one source light over here, and I'm gonna delete it, and then I had this guy as well. Whoops, sorry, it's really hard to select. There you go. Yeah, that was my light pass in this scene, and this is the default scene. The reason why this scene has some light still is because I have an HDRI environment, which is some sort of global spherical light. You can access that by going in object, world, and here you have that one. So I think actually you'd need to plug this one in here, but yeah, I just played with the settings here. I mean, you can tweak your lighting settings here. I'm just gonna tweak it here. and if I disconnect, everything will become pitch black, and this means that, you know, your scene literally has no source of light. So that's something, you know, that you can play with. And yeah, it can be super useful. You know, maybe you want to render like just one asset. However, let's say that one asset is in a jungle or something, but obviously you don't have time to create like an entire jungle all around it. So that's when HDRI environments come in super useful. You know, they simulate that kind of lighting environment for your one object. Can you tell me if you are making the scene for game dev or just referring, and can I see the wireframe of it? Let me just connect my node setup over here. I'll just undo until I get back to where I had my two lights. And I'll delete this guy because I don't need it. Okay. Yes, so to answer your question, I'm actually not making this for like a game or anything. And that's a good question. Where would you be enabling wireframe? I enabled it the other day, but I keep missing that one. I'm just gonna select the entirety of the scene. No. One sec. I'll go back to object mode. Yeah, one thing that I really like about Maya is that wireframe is right here, but in Blender I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in view. I just gotta find where, or maybe someone's gonna drop it in the comments. Let's see. Come on, Blender. Why do you do this to me? Nah, that's perspective. Yes, it's somewhere here, but I'll just show you the wireframe quickly here, you know, per object. So this one has like the simplest wireframe ever. It's super mega simple. Nope. Just give me a second here. I'm fighting with my French keyboard as well at the same time. Top right. Let's see. Do you have it here? Nope, I guess not. Just gonna be following everyone's instructions. Okay, I mean, I guess this one does it. I'm pretty sure there was a mode to view wireframe like overlaid, but yeah, I mean, this kind of gives you like a good idea of the scene itself. And this guy right here is pretty dense, but not that many polygons. Let me just double check here. You tell him Jin. So John is Jonathan, who's in the live stream. I think he muted himself or something. And then, whoops. And then you have Jin, who's the guy that is commenting in the chat right now. So yeah, I'll just go back to my scene view right here. Okay, now I think we kind of covered that area. One last thing that I wanted to talk about here. Just one sec, I'll just write down something for you guys quickly. Come on, Blender. Yeah, Shift Z is not working for me. I think that's because I altered quite a few of the shortcuts. But yes, I'll get back to that one. I need to learn the small things of the software more. So the last thing that I wanted to cover is this guy over here, the light. This is super simple, but you know, worth talking about. This is basically an emissive light right here, and you have your BSDF principled BSDF light over here, and then I just added a color for my light and then a bright contrast node, and I plugged them to the emission input right over here to make sure that I can control the intensity of the light, basically. So that comes in pretty handy, and the setup is like really simple. If you want to create a node in Blender, just press tab or go to add over here, then you can search or, you know, look through the different categories. But I just like to press tab and then maybe write in bright and then maybe RGB, and from there you can easily connect your different nodes. So maybe you want to have like a disco something light over here. So actually I'm gonna need to lower the intensity of that one. There you go. Yeah, no, maybe this is the next Blade Runner or something. So I'm just gonna keep playing with my settings right here. Yeah, I mean, maybe you want to do this, you know, maybe for whatever reason you feel like doing it. You have every right to. So yeah, fairly simple parameters again to manipulate. And let's check the comment again. Yes. I'm actually using an HDRI in this scene that I had for like, I think almost 2 years, somewhere in my drive. I can't even remember where it came from. Oh yeah, Vaporwave or New Retrowave. Yep, that's the mood here. Okay, there was another question. Why Eevee? I mean, the industry itself is really trying to converge in real time. I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of companies are starting to use Unreal Engine for ArchViz, for virtual production, even movie pre-visualization. And Epic themselves are working on so many different features, like ray tracing, for instance, to make it look really great. Blender here with Eevee is kind of trying to take the same route by making sure that, you know, you guys have, I think maybe one of the best real-time render engines out there, probably right there between Marmoset and Unreal Engine and Unity. And so yeah, if you feel like doing something in real time that you can rotate around and so on, I definitely recommend this. Even if you're used to offline rendering and you really loved cycles in 2.79, you should still try this one, because it's like really simple to set up in general. All right, we're almost done. I'll just check the comments here. Yeah, Jin's point is actually really good. Eevee again is super convenient, especially for a live stream like this. As I said earlier, I don't have, you know, like the best computer out there, so if I had to use offline rendering, it would just be a pain to wait for it to render, and then maybe it doesn't look that good, and then tweak a slider, see that it works again. Like this right here, what I'm doing, whoops, it's not the good one. Like this operation in offline rendering doesn't exist. It just doesn't. And yeah, I think say no more, I guess. But yeah. Okay. What kind of textures are you putting in the principal shader? That's a good question. We're almost done, but I'm gonna take the next few minutes to talk about just that, because it's something that needs more coverage. So let's say you're a Megascans user, you download, you know, you just subscribed, you're super excited to try out your stuff, and you don't know what map to work with. You just have to know that generally, when we talk about PBR, there are only very few specific important textures. First one is albedo, which you can call diffuse or base color. Second one is normal map. Third one is roughness, which controls how rough your reflections are. And third one optionally is metalness, and fourth one optionally again is displacement. There are other textures like opacity map, translucency, and like fuzziness map, for instance, is something that we have in the library. However, generally most assets only use those PBR textures. So you could either import them automatically with the live link, but if you want to know how they work under the hood, basically you have the albedo that is connected now to the base color right here, and the albedo is set to sRGB, which is the color space. And then you have this guy right here, which is the roughness that we plug into the roughness. I mean, it's fairly, you know, self-explanatory here. This one is set to non-color, which if you're using like an offline render, it's linear. Ruthwick Rao just said spec. Actually, you have specular and metalness workflows. Those are two different workflows. If you're using a specular, don't use a metalness. Like, it's just two different setups. There's specular workflow, metalness workflow. Specular, I think, has like specular, albedo, normal, gloss, and roughness has roughness, normal, albedo, metallic, if you need a metallic. And then you have the normal map. So the normal map and the roughness are non-color data because they don't represent color. They just represent pixel values. And as soon as you set it to non-color, you just create a normal map node by tab clicking and then normal. And you have this guy over here. You plug it to the color, and then you plug this guy, the output of the normal map node, to the input of the normal in the principled BSDF shader. And from there you can actually tweak your parameters here. If for whatever reason you have an object space normal map, I think you can change that here. So that's actually pretty neat. Let me just double check. Is using both PBR and specular, both roughness and spec in a PBR setup suggested? So I'm probably gonna leave this to Jin to answer because I haven't looked up into PBR that much in detail. However, generally speaking, you work with either one of those. Not like, you don't need to have one asset in your scene that is, I don't know, like specular, another one that is roughness, workflow. Just focus on one workflow. Will there be a recording? Yes, same link. This video will automatically be saved. And yeah, that's, you know, you don't need that many textures and you get a really good result, like you said. So Megascans textures, are they is the normal map format OpenGL? Pretty sure that it is. Yes, definitely. So how do you properly export debris into Blender? Stacked on top of each other, I can't separate them. Okay, I'm just gonna ask that question here. So Ricardo Munoz asked, I hope I pronounced your name right, by the way. He asked, how do you import like scatter assets into your Blender scene? Because when you import them, they're all stacked together, and I'll show you what he means in a second. So let's send a scatter object. Which one? Did I download this one? Alright, I'll just go to my downloaded tab instead. Yeah, personally, I usually recommend the metallic roughness workflow because you don't need a metallic map most of the time. Like most of these assets, for instance, don't have a metallic map, and that's because they're not metals. So yeah, it's pretty useful. Okay, let's send this asset maybe, or this one. And I'll go to export settings. I think this looks good. Then I'll hit export. Okay, now I'll go back to Blender. Whoops, sorry. Did I undo the import? Yeah, I think I did. I just pressed undo when I imported. I'll just send it back again. Shouldn't take much time. Let me check the questions. Okay, here they are. Maybe I might need to scale them up a little bit. It keeps whenever I undo, it just deletes them. Control Shift Z, Control Y. There you go. Again and again, and yeah, I'll just scale them down a little bit more. Okay, so we're well aware of this issue, and one thing that we're trying to solve with this problem here is kind of generating a grid. You know, when you import these objects, they kind of get placed like so into a grid, and from there you should be able to select them very easily. So actually, I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but yeah, it's in the works. I know how painful the workflow is, believe me, and we're gonna make sure that you guys get this as soon as possible. Another thing that is also quite time consuming is when you're working with something like an atlas map, right here. Do I have an atlas? Yeah, this one. If you are doing this in Blender or whatever software, I covered it in a previous live stream, but you basically have to cut the whole shape into a simple geometry, and then maybe you apply vertex painting, and there's so much stuff that you need to do that is just, it's depending on how fast you are, it can take like less than a minute to do something like this, but it's quite time consuming. And we're also working on something like that for you guys. I can't say much more about it, but yeah, let's see the comments again. Oh, you guys are really active. There's a scatter objects. Can we have one look at the texture file of these rocks model you imported? Yeah, for sure. That's actually a good point. I'll just type in scatter. I mean, maybe, okay, so if you had a bug with this in the past where they all came in as combined, most likely it has been fixed. So, yeah. Oh, heyo bien bieftent. Okay, I think we're done. This is the most painful part of these live streams, is there's just so much stuff to talk about, and it always pains me to hit that stop streaming button. But yeah, the goal here again was just to give you guys, you know, a fairly basic overview into how to tweak some of these basic parameters and answer your questions that you may have on Blender and on Megascans, Bridge, and the other tools. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have more questions, if you want us to publish more, yes, Hugo, also this live stream will be recorded right after the live stream is over, so you should have it in like a minute. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please, if you have suggestions about, you know, surfaces maybe, or any other type of assets, if you want to have a specific tutorial about Blender on the Quixel channel, just drop us a message in that video's not this one, actually, yes, you can use this one. Just drop a suggestion, hey, I would really like to see a tutorial on this and this or that, and then we'll look into it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Felt like it was really fast. I think Jonathan has left us. I am all alone now. But yeah, thank you so much for the live stream. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell button, smash that like button, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, and yeah, see ya.